Good afternoon, music world. John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about another artist discography ranking. Now, this month I decided to go with Kentucky-based indie and art and folk rock and psychedelic rock legends, My Morning Jacket, for a few reasons. A, they do have a new album coming out, which I'm going to be reviewing this week. Definitely be on the lookout for that. But also, I'm here to chat about it because it's a discography that I've never really dove that far into. Outside of a couple of key tracks here and there, I never really listened to much My Morning Jacket growing up. As a matter of fact, more ironic than anything, I've listened to more of Jim James's solo work than most of his stuff with My Morning Jacket. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into my personal ranking after diving through their discography a few times. Keep in mind, as always, it's all opinion, folks, so let's just have some fun and let's just kick things off. All right, kicking things off at number 9, I'm going to put 2008's Evil Urges. This to me was just a real friggin' sloppy one, and one that confused me more than anything. Now, gearing up to listen to their discography, I had heard from a couple of friends that this was a record that was one of their more experimental, one of their most out there records, which to me, that sounds more interesting than anything. But for me, this is one of the records in My Morning Jacket's discography where it's just so obvious that they're trying so freaking hard, and on this record, things just get awkward way too fast for me. I mean, this album is just really sloppy at the end of the day. My Morning Jacket bounced constantly back and forth between Jim James trying to be some art rock god and them trying to follow that up with their signature sound, but flopping on that too. Yeah, there's a couple of tracks here that are okay at best, but overall, this was one of the most difficult records in their discography to get through for me. At number 8, I'm going to put 2020's The Waterfall Part 2. Let me tell you, friends, usually if there's a Part 2 outside of a very few circumstances, it's usually not that good, or at least not as good as its predecessor. I mean, we'll get to my thoughts on The Waterfall in a few minutes, but I mean, 5 years after the original Part 1, and this does not even come close. This is such a snooze fest, and definitely one of their more phoned in records. It's just way too average sounding, way too laid back. Jim James sounds half asleep on 90% of these cuts. Instrumentally, these tracks are usually so stripped down that I fail to take anything from them, and even the experiments on this record just really go down real fast. I personally don't get it. And number 7, I'm going to put their self-titled record from 2021. It's just another oddity in their discography for me. Now, I will say this, though. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. Tracks like Least Expected and really legitimate jams like In Color are totally viable modern My Morning Jacket tracks. Great ones, too. But for me, I think mostly my issues with this record is it comes off a little cheesy at times, a little corny. I've heard people say that this is kind of their like hippiest record, which I wouldn't disagree with. But also, a lot of the issues on this record is I feel like they tried so hard to bring in elements of their legendary live show to the studio, which is just okay. I mean, sometimes there's a couple of jams on here, legitimate jams that are super easy to get lost in. But other times it's just misguided, and because they're in the studio, it's way too polished. I don't know. This one's not for me, really. Certainly not their worst, though. Now, at number 6, I'm going to put 2011's Circuital, which, fun fact, this was actually one of my only real records that I had listened to from My Morning Jacket prior to this. And at the time, I'm going to be honest, I actually enjoyed the bulk of the record, but that's also probably due to the fact that I had never really listened to any other My Morning Jacket material at the time. But hearing it in retrospect with the rest of their discography, I think it's kind of middle of the road as far as their album's concerned. I mean, there's some really great cuts on here. The title track is really great. Out of My System is awesome as well, but it's very middle of the road, like I was saying. This is very much a transition for them once again. They go with a lot more synths and electronic elements on this album, which at times comes off a little okay, but also comes out painfully outdated. At number 5, I'm going to put their debut, 1999's Tennessee Fire. And for the most part, I think this is a totally viable, really enjoyable, just all-around solid debut that shows the band getting their footing. But doing really well with it. It's a moody, grainy alternative country and folk record that has a lot going for it, especially in the songwriting and the harmony department. They both step up to the plate immediately in those departments and knock it out of the park. And tracks like Evelyn Is Not Real and The Bear are just great, great, great early My Morning Jacket cuts. Now, I will say this, though, it's a little inconsistent for every great track here. There's one that's just kind of decent or okay, but it's decent overall. I do enjoy this record a lot, albeit a little bit of a long one. Now, at number 4, I'm going to put 2015's The Waterfall. This is one of the records in their discography that actually caught me off guard. You know, I'd heard a lot of whispers about fans of the band just being really big fans of this record. I admit it, I'm one of them now as well. Now, while Believe, that kicks this album off, is one of the crappier songs in this band's discography, I mean, it's brutal. But what follows is a slew of heartfelt, emotional, folk rock and indie rock tunes that shows the band not slowing down at all. I mean, the amount of love and care for their sound on this record, I mean, it's applaudable. It's not overblown. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's colorful. The songwriting's great. It's really decent. Not only that, but it just seems, I don't know, it just seems like the right place for the right time, and just a great modern sound for the band. Now, at number 3, I'm going to put 2001's At Dawn. This, for me, is where the band just really started clicking on all cylinders, and just everything started coming together. Despite the album's hour and 15-minute runtime, it's a beefy boy. Honestly, I've never had much of a problem with getting through this thing in one listen. I mean, there's a couple of tracks here that don't work out, but for the most part, Jim James and company brought their working pants here. Lyrically, this record is just so full of love, and harmony-wise, I mean, for 2001 standards, they kind of really did set the bar here. We're ahead of their time. And yeah, there's a lot of material here, but it's just sunny and soulful and so full of heart. I really do love it. Now, at number 2, this was one of the albums that kind of caught me off guard the most, and I'm going to put Z here. Yeah, 2005 Z, that is. And this one caught me off guard because it is a transition record, but it's one that works out really well for the band. It's a pretty big leap for them as well. I mean, recording this, you can just kind of tell that they had a little bit of a fire under their ass. Indie was already changing at the time. And the result is a much more modern sounding, gussied up record, one that seems a little bit more current, but one that kept everything that was truly already great about the band. And listening to their previous material and having this one on the horizon, I'm going to be honest, I was worried, but it's a really, really solid record. Mostly because of the heart, because as far as, a different record goes, this is a very gussied up record from My Morning Jacket, but the heart is here. The harmonies are here. The songwriting is here. Not only that, but with this band's updated kind of production sound at the time, it really did let them get loose into their space rock and just get a little bit more jammy. I'm very impressed with it. And at number 1, finally, I'm going to put 2003's It Still Moves. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but this record hit me the absolute hardest. It is just so hazy and easy to get lost in, and just so full of love and appreciation. I mean, if you thought that some of their early records were really harping on the harmonies and the vocals and the songwriting, that the direction that indie was going in, I mean, listen to this record. And once again, is such a welcoming record despite its long run length once again. It's full of heart, soul, passion. It has a knack for the adventurous as well. There's really something for everybody on here. While as beautiful and full of heart and emotional that these tracks are, they're full of beautiful detours and harmonies, and it just makes my heart sing. It's beautiful, and I think it's their best record. But let me know what you all think down below. In a few days when I pop out my review for their new record, I will let you know how it fits in my discography with them. And until next time, have a great day, friends.